Alright, let's dive into the story of Vietnam's long and resilient struggle for independence, from ancient times up to the 20th century. It's a tale filled with bravery, tenacity, and a deep sense of national identity that has shaped the country into what it is today. Our story begins thousands of years ago, around 2000 BCE, with the ancient Vietnamese people, known as the Lac Viet. They lived in the Red River Delta and surrounding areas in what is now northern Vietnam. These early inhabitants were skilled in agriculture, particularly rice cultivation, which played a central role in their society. Fast forward a bit to the 3rd century BCE, we see the rise of the legendary kingdom of Van Lang under the rule of the Hung Kings. The Hung Kings are celebrated in Vietnamese folklore as the founders of the nation, and their reign is considered a golden age of early Vietnamese civilization. They established a structured society, laid down laws, and developed a unique culture that included festivals, traditions, and rituals still observed today. But like all good stories, challenges were on the horizon. By the 3rd century BCE, the kingdom of Van Lang fell under the control of the Chinese Qin dynasty. This marked the beginning of a long period of Chinese domination that would last for over 1,000 years. During this time, the Vietnamese people were subject to various Chinese dynasties, including the Han, Tang, and Ming. The Chinese imposed their language, culture, and administrative practices, aiming to assimilate the Vietnamese into their empire. Despite this long period of foreign rule, the spirit of resistance and the desire for independence never faded among the Vietnamese. One of the earliest and most iconic figures of resistance was the Trung sisters. In 40 CE, Trung Trac and Trung Nhe led a rebellion against the Han dynasty's oppressive rule. The sisters successfully captured several towns and established an independent state for a few years. Although their rebellion was eventually crushed, the Trung sisters became national heroines, symbolizing the enduring Vietnamese spirit of resistance. Moving forward to the 10th century, we see a significant turning point. By 938 CE, the Vietnamese under the leadership of Ngo Quyen decisively defeated the Chinese forces at the Battle of Bac Dang River. This victory effectively ended over a millennium of Chinese domination and marked the beginning of an era of independence. Ngo Quyen established himself as the first ruler of the newly independent Vietnamese state, known as Dai Co Viet. From this point, Vietnam entered a period of consolidation and expansion under various dynasties. The Lai dynasty 1009 to 1225 and the Tran dynasty 1225 to 1400 were particularly notable. These dynasties established a strong centralized government, promoted Buddhism as the state religion, and oversaw a flourishing of culture and education. The Tran dynasty, in particular, is celebrated for its military prowess. It repelled 3 major Mongol invasions in the 13th century, solidifying Vietnam's independence and territorial integrity. The 15th century, however, brought new challenges. The Ming dynasty of China invaded and occupied Vietnam in 1407, initiating a period of harsh rule. But once again, the Vietnamese spirit of resistance rose to the occasion. Le Loi, a wealthy landowner and military leader, led a successful uprising against the Ming occupiers. By 1428, he had driven out the Chinese forces and established the Le dynasty, which would rule Vietnam for over 3 centuries. Le Loi is remembered as a national hero, and his revolt is considered a pivotal moment in Vietnam's long struggle for independence. The subsequent centuries saw periods of internal strife and fragmentation. The 17th and 18th centuries were marked by conflicts between rival factions, the Trinh lords in the north and the Nguyen lords in the south. This internal division made Vietnam vulnerable to external threats, but it also set the stage for eventual reunification. By the 19th century, the Nguyen dynasty had emerged victorious and unified the country under Emperor Gia Long in 1802. However, this period of unity and relative stability was short-lived, as new foreign powers began to encroach on Vietnam. The French, seeking to expand their colonial empire, began to establish control over Vietnam in the mid-19th century. By 1884, Vietnam had become a French colony integrated into French Indochina alongside Cambodia and Laos. The French colonial period was marked by significant changes and challenges for the Vietnamese people. The French introduced new economic policies, infrastructure projects, and educational reforms, but they also exploited Vietnam's resources and oppressed its people. The colonial administration was characterized by heavy taxation, forced labor, and the suppression of Vietnamese culture and traditions. Despite the oppressive nature of French rule, the desire for independence remained strong. The early 20th century saw the emergence of various nationalist movements and leaders who sought to end colonial rule and restore Vietnamese sovereignty. One of the most influential figures of this period was Phan Boi Chau, a scholar and activist who founded the Vietnamese Restoration League. He advocated for modernization and independence, drawing inspiration from Japan's Meiji Restoration. Another key figure was Ho Chi Minh, who would later become the most prominent leader in Vietnam's struggle for independence. Born in 1890, Ho Chi Minh traveled extensively and became involved in socialist and communist movements around the world. He founded the Indochinese Communist Party in 1930 and later the Viet Minh, a coalition of nationalist and communist forces dedicated to achieving Vietnamese independence. World War II created a unique opportunity for the Vietnamese independence movement. During the war, Japan occupied Vietnam, displacing the French colonial administration. The Viet Minh, under Ho Chi Minh's leadership, capitalized on this power vacuum and began to mobilize the population against both Japanese and French control. In August 1945, following Japan's surrender, the Viet Minh launched the August Revolution, seizing control of Hanoi and proclaiming the Democratic Republic of Vietnam with Ho Chi Minh as its president. However, independence was not easily secured. The French were determined to reassert their control over Vietnam, leading to the First Indochina War between the Viet Minh and French forces. The conflict lasted until 1954, culminating in the decisive Battle of Dien Bien Phu, where the Viet Minh achieved a stunning victory. This defeat forced the French to negotiate, leading to the Geneva Accords, which temporarily divided Vietnam at the 17th parallel, with the north under the control of the Viet Minh and the south under a non-communist government. The division of Vietnam set the stage for further conflict. The South Vietnamese government, supported by the United States, faced growing opposition from communist insurgents, the Viet Cong, who were backed by North Vietnam. This tension escalated into the Vietnam War, a brutal and protracted conflict that drew in significant international involvement, particularly from the United States. The Vietnam War was marked by intense combat, widespread devastation, and significant loss of life. Despite the immense military power of the United States, the resilience and determination of the Vietnamese people ultimately prevailed. In 1975, North Vietnamese forces captured Saigon, leading to the reunification of Vietnam under communist control. The story of Vietnam's independence movement is one of remarkable resilience and determination. From ancient times through centuries of foreign domination and internal strife, the Vietnamese people have consistently fought to maintain their sovereignty and cultural identity. The leaders and movements that emerged throughout this history played crucial roles in shaping the nation's path to independence. Even after achieving reunification, Vietnam faced significant challenges in rebuilding and developing the country. The post-war years were marked by economic hardship and international isolation. However, through perseverance and gradual economic reforms, Vietnam has transformed itself into a dynamic and rapidly developing nation. Today, Vietnam's history of resistance and independence continues to be a source of national pride and identity. The legacy of figures like the Trung sisters, Ngo Quyen, Le Loi, and Ho Chi Minh is celebrated and remembered as a testament to the enduring spirit of the Vietnamese people. The lessons learned from this long struggle have shaped Vietnam's modern identity and its place in the world.